Hello friends, this is our 40th program, and we are moving into an analysis of the fifth petal in terms of the synthesis of many factors. Of course, the synthesis is not over yet. We will have charts to look at these things after I complete every petal one by one, but this will be a rather detailed approach, as we have been doing. So it's the beginning of the 40th and the synthesis of petal 5. And we've usually begun with these statements from about page 822, which are summary statements about the particular tier in which a petal finds itself. The tier of petals preserve the fundamental orange, but add the color rose in every petal, so that 4 colors are now seen. 4, the number of integration, if I may say so. 4, the number of bringing together the pairs of opposites. These petals are organized and vitalized in the hall of learning, but remain unopened. The outer tier of petals simultaneously unfolds until it is open entirely, revealing the second circle, and the third remains shielded. What we have here is the outer circle unfolding entirely. This suggests that there has been some unfoldment, but not entirely. One has to watch, I think, the words very carefully, revealing then the second circle. It's interesting that when petals are being organized and vitalized, they are not necessarily visible. Okay, and let's make sure that we can apply the... Here we go. Yeah, they are not necessarily visible. Okay, then this quote about the love petal, by now we're familiar with it, but the repetition, I think, helps. From page, that section on page 539 to 540. The petal of love for the astral plane. Unfoldment, general development, unfoldment, it's one process. We can say development, unfoldment is one process, continuous, is brought about through the process of gradually transmuting the love of the subjective nature, or of the self within, which could be as the soul-in-incarnation. Okay, soul-in-incarnation. Soul-in-incarnation, that's it. Which could be as the soul-in-incarnation attracted outwardly, as it is for the longest period of human development. So we're transmuting the love of the subjective nature, the soul in incarnation, or the self within the personality. This has a dual effect and works out onto the physical plane in many lives of turmoil, fitting with the Scorpio quality of this petal, and also with the Leo. And I would say, the battle, the battle between the pairs of opposites is most intense here. The scales have not really tipped in favor of the soul. So in many lives of turmoil, of endeavor, and of failure, as a man strives to turn his attention to the love of the real instead of the love of that which is attractive to him in the world of form. And then, going on to that other section in Cosmic Fire, those two sections tell the most, around the middle 500s and then the 820s or so, and later. Petal 2, higher intelligent love. So on the physical plane, physical and astral planes, this is not the same as higher knowledge of the fourth petal. So of the Petal 4. The love energy is, as it were, doubled. Rose and the corresponding 3, of which one of them is Rose. So higher intelligent love, a different kind of love, a love more akin to Venus in a way. It's very much a Venus petal, akin to Venus, sort of a Venus petal in a way. Venus, or Neptune. We'll discuss that. This is the solar angel petal, in a way. The petal at which the solar angel really becomes interested. And this can be expressed on the physical plane and on the astral plane. This higher intelligent love is a love from a place beyond the concrete mind. But it's not yet, interestingly, not yet love on the mental plane. Love on the mental plane. Meaning the thoughts, the feelings, the actions. Feelings and actions are loving, and the question is, are the thoughts loving, or does that come later? Okay. So let's see. The Brahma aspect, if we look at this all, that which is the not self or material aspect is apparent and has been predominant. This covers the subhuman stages and the first 3 cycles of the personality life. We can say, let's see, this is Cosmic Fire 730. So let's look at that. 730. The Brahma aspect, let's see, the point is necessary to emphasize is that man does not in space and time and in the 3 worlds demonstrate all these aspects simultaneously, but only simultaneously towards the close of the process of evolution. As in the macrocosm, Brahma manifests activity first, then the second or middle aspect, and finally the first or purposeful will makes itself seen. So the Brahma aspect manifests, interestingly, in terms of the outer activity, the savage state, the second cycle, the average man, and then the intellectual, successful man. Savage state, of course, Petal 1, and part of Petal 2. Average man, Petal 2, moving into Petal 3. The intellectual, successful man, Petal 3, 4, 5. Part of Petal 5, we might say. The Vishnu aspect, that in which the love-wisdom aspect gradually predominates and emerges from the medium of the Brahma aspect. It's the consciousness aspect. It covers the final 2 stages of the human personality life, and that period of egoic growth which embraces the final 2 initiations. So the first cycle is the path of probation, which is being worked out especially in relation to the 6th petal, the path of initiation till the 3rd initiation, the unfoldment of petals 7, 8, and 9, and then the 3rd cycle covering the 4th and 5th initiations. This is actually an important tabulations, and maybe I wonder whether I've included them here. Maybe I have. Maybe not, and I will actually include them. Why not? Okay, the Vishnu aspect till the 3rd initiation, 3rd cycle, etc. So we have, are we in the realm of Brahma per se? The petals of the middle tier are in some ways under Vishnu, but especially from the middle point on, from the point after the great struggle and crash of the central petal, then it's as if the Vishnu aspect begins to take over. So after the struggle and crash of the individual in the fifth petal, the Vishnu aspect takes over. So much of our world is still aimed at the Brahma aspect and celebrates the Brahma aspect over the Vishnu aspect. If you, I was looking at some of the things the new Pope is doing. It really is coming out of the Vishnu aspect. He's really being a messenger of love and reconciliation, so needed in the person of the Pope at this time. I wonder what the prophecy can mean, that this is the last of the popes. Well, we'll have to, we'll have to let that unfold. Path of initiation, that's from the first initiation to the third. It's the second cycle and sees the development of petals 7, 8, and 9 until their unfoldment, and then the third cycle sees the destruction of the causal body, the clearing of the debris, and the mastership of the man. Genius and insanity are closely related. I'm recalling here that two petals open in the love tier. In the love tier will give genius. But, unless there is balance and some stability, the inflow of third aspect energy may be too great to sustain the psychological integrity of the individual. Okay, we've been thinking of many high qualities in all this, but there's also the flip side, and in any of these petals, up and through the eighth, the selfish side can show, and I really think that's important. Obviously, we're not emphasizing that, but there are people who are criminals in every petal, and the type of crimes are different in every petal, or every petal has its criminals, but the types of crimes are different, of different degrees of intelligence. And something, is twisted along the way of development, and the result is these unwholesome expressions. But in general, the right human relations is steadily increasing throughout the second tier. He participates intelligently, intelligent participation in the life of the world, and also the building of social relations under the Venus influence. Building of right social relations under the Venus influence, much less of possessive, instinctual love. I think many of the problems arise when there is uneven development, and someone who has not successfully done some preliminary work has a petal far on ahead, quite fully developed, and has a type of intelligence in which the morality doesn't equal the intelligence. So we can say problems arise when there is irregular development, and the foundational morality does not equal the mental development. So the motives are wrong and supported by high intelligence. This is a very dangerous proposition, and I think, we see that in the Black Lodge. Something about the the love factor in the Egoic Lotus has been stunted, but the concrete mind has become a separate sphere and is of extremely high capacity. Well, anyway, looking at the outline we have been using, the categories we have been using, we have here rose and the corresponding 3, orange, rose, and blue, so there's a double rose. And this is the only petal in which we find a double color, and that has to be very significant. Perhaps if the Egoic Lotus is of a similar structure in a future solar system, and there's no way that we can affirm that it will be a double yellow, a double sacrifice, perhaps. So it's rose, orange, rose, blue. It is the tier is the love tier. Division of the tier is the love petal. And we see that here. Love is the major category, and then love again. Okay. The element most associated with this tier is water for the astral plane. Okay, and I think I have to have that in the right color. All of these colors alert me to where, when the comments were given, and in what class they emerged. The division of the elemental triplicity most associated with this petal is Scorpio. The Scorpio, if we follow the cardinal fixed and mutable progression, and it seems really to fit very well from Cancer to Scorpio to Pisces, given the nature of these petals. The big turmoil, I would not say that Scorpio has a monopoly on turmoil, but certainly it is a sign which can produce that through the kind of process of inducing conflict and dealing with conflict. Which of the 3 fires is most associated with this petal? Well, I would say frictional fire to solar fire, I would say. So let's see. Frictional fire to solar fire. In other words, there is quite a long process here, many lives, as he says, and we begin with emphasis upon the integrated personality and end, and then the destruction of that emphasis, and then a movement into aspiration toward the end of the petal. It would have to be, because this would be necessary if we find that complete unfoldment of this petal indicates the first initiation. So there would have to be some previous work and unfoldment in there to indicate the path of aspiration and also the path of probation, where a lot of work is going on ahead in the 6th petal, which is corresponding to Virgo, where we correct so many of the things that are incorrect. So which of the from frictional fire to solar fire, which of the 3 fires is most associated with this petal? Well, fire by friction continues to the extent that there is personality identification, but, and there is in this, heights of real personality magnificence can be reached in this petal. Reached in this petal. But the opportunity for solar fire is first also realized in this petal. I mean, there may be some sort of the opportunity for the significant ascent, I want to say, significant ascent of solar fire is reached in this petal. And because there was already something of that found in petal number 4, but it was more balancing of the pairs of opposites, and there was not really a strong moving into prominence of solar fire in that still lunar petal we call petal 4. So the opportunity for solar fire is first reached in this petal. Solar fire becomes the solar angel, becomes the downward gazing soul at this point. And solar angel begins to give greater meditative attention to the personality, whereas heretofore it had been absorbed. Heretofore it had been mostly absorbed in its own tasks, of which the human being knows nothing. Absorbed, right. Okay. So number 5 is interesting. It's kind of interesting because the solar angel is a combination of the 5th and 2nd rays, and when looking at cycles for the 2nd ray, number 5 is the number determining 2nd ray cycles of 5 years, 50 years, 500 years, 5,000 years, and so forth. So we have here a mixture of solar fire and fire by friction. To a certain extent, this is true of, well, it's true all the way up, really. The time that solar fire really triumphs completely, we might say, is when the egoic vehicle disappears altogether. Of course, fire by friction is waning all that time. The lower vehicles have less and less of any kind of matter in them that is not atomic, except, of course, for the dense physical vehicle, and that's a special problem, because the physical vehicle doesn't reach up to the atomic level. What is the planar focus most associated with this petal? Well, we have physical, astral, and mental, I would say. Lots of mental with Leo, the 5th sign, conveying the 5th ray, and with Venus so strong in its 5th ray. So there's lots of mentality related to this 5th petal, and it can be of a very brilliant and creative type. Of course, there continues to be the focus on the physical, astral, and mental planes of the, so the integrated personality. Integrating personality is becoming even stronger. But the higher mental plane is now a possibility, beginning to touch that in the later part of the 5th petal process. The higher mental plane can be invoked, higher intelligent love. Higher knowledge came from that area too. It didn't really take over or dominate the 4th petal person, but the possibility of the reversal of the wheel and a moving into a dominant position of the higher of the pairs of opposites is really here in petal 5. So this is really, in a way, the first stage of the antikarana. It's not the kind of antikarana we build that bypasses the soul. But this will not happen until the lower Leo begins to seek the higher Leo. That is, until the first part, whatever division that might be, the period of the dominant personality is lived through. the the period of the dominant personality must be lived through in its 3, 7, or even 11 lives. So now, you see, the first part of the Antikarana really has to do with the link between the mental unit and the causal body itself. The man can begin to reach up, whether in meditation or prayer, or some sort of link with his higher nature. It's not the link between the mental unit and the monastic permanent atom and a further continuation linking with the Buddhic permanent atom, atmic permanent atom, and eventually the monad. It's not that part of the Antikarana. The Antikarana is triangular, and the first part links the mental unit with the egoic lotus causal body itself. So we're making a bridge between the lower mental plane and the higher mental plane through occult meditation, or just trying to live according to our inner voice or conscience. That will also do that. Once that rapport is set up, that guiding rapport, then there is the possibility of this first phase of the Antikarana. Sometimes we don't even call it that, but for this first phase to begin appearing. All three planes and all three vehicles are required for an integrated personality, and so and also some higher mental plane can be accessed, and this tells us that the techniques of integration are at least in sight. I sometimes think that perhaps the soul waits until the first degree to apply the ray technique of the technique of integration appropriate. There's a different one, as you know, for each one of the soul rays. And many of us, we're using that second ray technique. Again, I stand a point within a circle and yet myself. And this is found later in Esoteric Psychology too, in the 300s of the book, and in very important to see the soul doing its work. I mean, when the wheel is reversing here, the soul can begin to do its work for higher cultivation. The person is still mostly astrally polarized, but you can have mental focus and still be astrally polarized. That's kind of interesting. The astral mental polarization is not coming in until between the second and third initiation, or between, in a way, the 8th and 9th petal. Personality is desire, and soul is mind from that point of view. The solar plexus is the personality in that way, and then the soul relates more to the super diaphragmatic centers. In a way, personality and soul, we have Mars and Venus, definitely. And interestingly, Venus, the soul, is considered the feminine, and Mars, which must be subdued, is the masculine. It takes until the period, yes, between the second and third to become really mentally polarized and no longer, as they say, a hazard to the hierarchy, no longer a liability. By this I mean that the mind is filled with soul light as well as able to think. So one is mentally polarized, thinking within the light of the soul. So mental focus is not the same as mental polarization. So you can have a strong mental focus while still tending very much to your desires. I suppose there are, a stage of moving from one to the other, just as the chakras themselves have to transfer energy from a lower to a higher chakra. Polarization in the lower concrete mind can occur much earlier, even in the third petal, and can be very accented in the fifth and sixth. Let's call it, in a way, focus. We can call this focus, but it's not the same as a mental polarization. Mental MPZ. I think that'd be a good one, don't you think so? MPZ. Yeah. Oh, I guess MPL is what I've been calling it, but we can do it this way too. Mental polarization. Mental polarization. MPL also. Okay. So with mental polarization, the mind is really steadily held in the light of the soul. The world, the flesh, and the devil, these are the temptations in the desert, a lower octave perhaps, definitely really, than what Jesus or the Christ went through in the desert. They were major confrontations. If it was the Christ's confrontations, we're talking about major confrontations with evil, which prepared him for a still more powerful role as world savior. He was already, of course, the world teacher, and needed to express as the world savior, and he will be even more than that when he appears again. So the world, the flesh, and the devil have to be passed, and if you pass these, you are mentally polarized. Venus, the mind, and heart united give you mental polarization, and there is, how do you pass, you know? There is enough, what can I say, light in the, enough soul influence in the mind to help you pass these scorpionic temptations. The personality per se is too weak to pass them. The personality per se is too weak to pass these temptations. So from the second petal to the eighth, we are not yet fully mentally polarized, as DK uses the term. But somewhere in this unfoldment of the eighth petal, that does occur, and I'm still thinking that the eighth petal does not fully unfold until after there has been the victory in the desert. You know, deprived from any other kind of helpful influence. One has to rely entirely upon oneself. It's a little on the lower, a lower reflection of what happens at the time of the crucifixion. Again, complete self-reliance. Spiritual discernment is the city related to the third subplane of the mental plane, and the causal body is already on the second subplane by that time of work in the desert, so maybe one can think on the third level of the mental plane before the third initiation, perhaps, but not on the second level, and this is a hypothesis. In other words, whenever we are at a certain position, we can make instrumental some faculty which is below us. So already advanced man is appearing here in the fifth petal, especially the later part of the process, and the causal body will move to the second subplane, and so it certainly is there then by the time we're working in the desert at the eighth subplane. Interesting that the scorpion is a desert animal. I hadn't thought about that, but it's really, it's convincing. The scorpion is a desert animal, and this relates. And a scorpion is the symbol of temptation. So these two ideas come together, when discussing the temptations in... I'm going to try to make another abbreviation. Let's see. Oh, I've already done that. Okay. I've already done that. The temptations in the desert. All right. When can the soul really begin to use the mind? Well, without much obstruction, really, after the temptations. Then we do not have obstruction. In its use. Midway point on the higher mental plane is Libra, Venus, Sirius, the second ray, the fifth ray point, after which you pass the point of no return and the wheel has been finally reversed and no deviation is possible. Before that you can veer off, you know. So there's a midway point on the higher mental plane. It's kind of related to Libra and a reversal. It's related to the path to Sirius. And I mean the path of initiation that Sirius sponsors, because there are other, you know, left-hand initiations that we don't want anything to do with, and some people veer off in that direction. But the path of Libra, Venus, Sirius is sort of a second-ray point, and it's a point of discrimination where the balance is really tipped in favor of the whole Syrian method of initiation. So it probably would be very, very rare that anyone past that point could veer off. There are said to be some members of the Black Lodge who have focused their consciousness on the higher mental plane, and they are by far the most powerful, but not much is said about how they got there or what that really means. Anyway, this tells us that the wheel has been finally reversed and no deviation is going to be possible. At this point, it's wise to remember that Lucifer is another name for humanity. It's also a name for the solar angels. Lucifer, Prometheus, there's so many names. Even Satan, the higher meaning of it, so related to Saturn and Sanad and so forth, related to this luminous host, which the conventional religionists insist on seeing as evil, when they in fact have brought free choice to humanity and the ability to rise through merit. But it's going to be a long, hard sell talking about the importance of the solar angels, why they have not to be disrespected by those who are devoted to the perpetuation of the ancestral fires. The people who love the lunar tendencies and the lunar fires, the ancestral fires, looking backwards, do not love what the solar angel Narada, solar angels, the neurotic, not neurotic, but Narada, Narada is like Venus and the solar angels, and they bring something special to humanity in the battle with Brihaspati, which is that part of Jupiter which supports the ancestral fires related to the moon and Cancer. So there really is a parting of the ways here when we think about the lower influence of Jupiter giving fulfillment in form and full scope to the ancestral fires, and Venus, which wants the solar fire expression of the man on the higher planes. So, the Syrian vibration does come in via the solar angel. And in a way, there is a triangle I've talked about. Maybe we can't really say so much about it, but it goes Sirius, Leo, and Jupiter. And I think we will find that this middle petal, the love petal, with Jupiter being so strong in its higher aspects in terms of love, wisdom, that this middle petal has a very Syrian connection. After all, it does launch the man into his career as an initiate along the Syrian line. Even the first initiation, he becomes sort of, he's not really even a disciple. He's kind of an aspirant in relation to the star Sirius when he takes the first initiation. But by the time he is a third degree initiate, he is a disciple in relation to Sirius. And by the time he is a fifth degree initiate in our planetary system of initiations, he is at last a first degree initiate in relation to the Syrian regime of initiations. What permanent atom or unit or antichironic phase is most associated with this petal? I would say the mental unit. I know there's a connection of Leo with the astral permanent atom, but also the number 5 here is very, very strong. It's a middlemost petal, in a way, of the 9, and the mental unit has 4 spirillae. There is much conflict under the number 4 happening in this petal, but also a keen discrimination, let's just say, a keen discrimination between the higher of the pairs of opposites and the lower, with the necessity to choose the higher, and it's often chosen, and most often it is chosen. There's no antichirana yet in the usual sense that we consider the antichirana, not until well after the first initiation, but the first phase of the antichirana triangle can be built. The mental unit is very important, as Leo is a very mental sign. All those 5s are there, and the will to light, the will to illumine is there in Leo. So it's will and light, and among the 3 fire signs, Leo is the most associated with the power of love and with the soul. So the mental unit is the center, in a way, of the integrated personality, and now you can have a really, really integrated and expressive personality. This does not yet mean a personality fully integrated with the soul, but certainly integrated within itself, and very effective people here need not only be spiritual people. That calls for yet another integration. Leo, brilliance, genius, this would not happen unless the soul could really be touched. I'm reminded here, in a treatise on cosmic fire, page 1081, points of fiery excellence. It's a monadic type, but of course every monadic type is represented by happenings within the ego, a name given oft to magnetic and highly evolved types. There's a lot of petal-to-petal progression here. I've gone over this earlier in the discussion of these monadic points. When I look at tertiary points of secondary fire, it's just so much the 6th petal. Even the 2 times 3 is the 6. So, without really explaining this type of progression, DK seems to be taking us through the different petals. Even the idea of electric sparks could correspond to an Aquarian petal within the synthesis petals, in as much as Uranus and Aquarius have so much to do with electricity. But that, just a little deviation there. So the brilliance, the genius, the really outstanding magnetic type in the personality sense, before having had to go through a real self-examination, can be found here in the development of this petal. So, but there will be more than the brilliance. The very first phase of the Antikarana to the Egoic Lotus is now existing, especially in the later phases of Petal 5. And as I said, the first step of the Antikarana from the mental unit is from the mental unit to the Egoic Lotus. The mental unit is beginning to be affected by soul downflow, especially in the life processes which correlate with unfoldments in the later part of this petal. In genius, the mental unit is powerfully affected by the content of the causal body. The Egoic Lotus is felt as a high power or presence, and we are attracted to it. The law of attraction and repulsion is very strong in all of these petals. It was mentioned in Petal 4. We reorient ourselves towards a higher sun, and this is called, in some terminology, the reversal of the wheel. So we have a Leo phase 1 and a Leo phase 2. Later, at the 9th petal, there's a Leo phase 3, we might say. At the 9th petal, a Leo phase 3, and one becomes dimly aware of the one self, the monad, in isolated unity, which is not consummated until the 5th degree, which is again a Leo degree. So we can see some of these themes really operating together. Under Scorpio, in the middle of the 5th petal, we die to the pleasure of expressing merely as a dominant personality. We really get tired of that. In psychology, this has been called, in dream psychology, the king is sick. One takes no pleasure in these things anymore. Ecclesiastes, was he, am I pronouncing it correctly, from the Old Testament, and was it written by Solomon? He takes no pleasure in the normal things anymore. He needs a higher type of orientation and power, and to be affected by that higher aspect of his own self. Leo and Scorpio are here. Scorpio stages the release of Leo. The I am that phase of aspiration, the stage of aspiration, is beginning to come in. And I begin to think I am that. And Scorpio helps to, let's see, wait a second. Scorpio helps to put to death the lower Leo phase. Ra, the Egyptian. Personality rises, comes to prominence, and lowly is brought low. So Ra, this is a little Egyptian mythology. He confronts the serpent at night so that the sun can rise again, probably on a higher turn of the spiral, a new self or new type of sun. And what is suggested here is the midnight sun of initiation. Leo just has to be connected with the first initiation. You know, the Leo petal, when you think of it, the Leo petal and the first initiation must be related, because Leo, the sign, is so related to the first degree. One is born in or under that sign. And so the correlation with the 5th petal is only natural, And it is one of the very strong orienting facts in the unfoldment of the egoic lotus. Well, I seem to be trying to make that point that genius and madness are allied. I've said this more than once, and a bit too consistently, I fear. Maybe there's a lesson that I'm trying to understand about all of this. Okay. We then are moving further into the hall of learning. We know what that's about by now. It's not like learning in a lower school where the facts are imparted. It's learning about the higher of the pairs of opposites and our own higher nature. We're in the hall of learning, and because of the presence of the solar angel coming in more focally, we might at times, in the later part of this petal, get some intimation of what it's like to live in the hall of wisdom. Excuse me. The soul shines in the hall of wisdom, and under the sun of the fifth petal, when it is fully unfolded, the shining really begins. So now you encounter the sun and your need for the sun of wisdom. The solar angel can, in a way, be called the sun of wisdom. And you can say, truly, I know there is a source of wisdom within me. I think in is good, but within is even better. So we actually touch the higher power. We're not just registering it from the distance. Not just registering the higher power from a distance. It is much closer now in petal 5, which is the solar petal, than in petal 4, which is the last of the lunar petals. What world are we entering here? Well, we've been through the world of the senses, the world of emotions in the second petal, the world of the mind. Maybe, the world of the personality is one that's missing there. But we're beginning to enter the world of meaning, to the extent that we can bring, as an aspirant, this higher power, this soul influence into our lives. The world of meaning, the true relationship between things, is beginning to show or be experienced. True relationship between things is beginning to be experienced. Meaning, interpreting patterns, designs, and the place of anything within that patterned wholeness. Pattern wholeness, the fittingness in a larger context or in the pattern. What part of the pattern does this object, or any object, play? That is, from one perspective, meaning. The connections between things, the actual connections. Oh, get that correct. The actual connections between things, not illusory connections, as in illusory meanings, but the real ones, which the higher self perceives. This is the world of meaning. So you are, by the time you reach the experiences correlated with the last part of Petal 5, beginning to enter the world of meaning. In other words, touching the soul and seeing meaning. Before one is an initiate of the first degree, of the first degree, one must touch the soul. So when we begin to consider the higher of the pairs of opposites, the light of the world of meaning is increasingly available, much more so than in Petal 4. We see an expansive new world here. An expansive new world. Purpose and pattern, to me at least, are inseparable. That's why I always think that although purpose is part of a first ray trinity, I believe it occupies the second aspect in that first ray trinity. So in phase 1 of Petal 5, or the kinds of actions of the man that correlate with early work in that petal, we're definitely in the world of personality, and we could use that idea, here as a world of personality. I think we could. It's not, of course, given by decay, but sort of filling in the blanks here. In the latter part of Petal 5, we may look to the meaning of things. Well, let's just say in the middle part, part of Petal 5, we become disillusioned, and we are failing because we seek to perpetuate the old personality regime, which cannot be brought forward into the spiritual life, just like the personality cannot really enter the ashram. In the latter part, looking for the meaning, we start the search, and we start the search often when the king or the lower ego is sick. The king in this case is the lower ego, the personal self, which cannot sufficiently expand into the spiritual worlds. So there cannot, well, I'm wondering why I'm saying this, there cannot be a pure first ray. Well, there is a lot of first ray at this petal in the lower ego. It's I guess we learned too there cannot be eternal sunshine. Under the fourth ray aspect of this petal, there's going to be fluctuations, and given the polarities of the higher and lower self, there will be fluctuations. Eternal sunshine would be the higher of the pairs of opposites shining always, and the fluctuations of the lower of the pairs of opposites would cease, and it would be able to carry that light. But on the other hand, we have to be careful. The sun and moon are an important polarity, and too much sun will just turn everything into a desert, so that's no good either. Somehow the Leonian goddess Sekhmet is brought into discussion here, the devouring of humanity. But in Hinduism, the moon is Chandra. And matter of fact, I think India, another name for India is Chandra, which means moon, related to the good. So we have heat, dark, and the scorpion. And big changes are going to occur here. Let's just say the glorious, the shining of the glorious sun of personality is interrupted and falters. It's kind of this idea, let's say here, is this all there is? I think people have to go through that phase when they are making application to a higher aspect of their nature that they maybe don't even suspect. Petal 4, maybe there's also some opportunity to begin seeing the meaning. There is, the higher of the pairs of opposites is coming into sight. The higher of the pairs of opposites is coming into sight, but one is not identifying. identifying with it. One is balancing it against the demands of the lower. I'm going to say, I think it's time to have another abbreviation here. Okay, and this is the lower of the pairs of opposites. El pus, lower of the pairs of opposites. It would be nice to spell correctly, wouldn't it? So I'll have to do that again. Sorry. LPOOS, and we'll say lower of the pairs of OPPOSITES, opposites. Replace, yes, indeed. And I have wanted all along to have HPOOS. Maybe I'll do it here. HPOOS. HPOOS. These are strange-looking words, I admit, but they do come in handy. All right. So it's balancing rather than identifying with. The big question in Petal 5 is, who am I? That's what causes people so much trouble. The big who am I question is operating in this Leo area. The big who am I question is operating in this area, Petal 5, and causes so much turbulence. I remember my voice teacher always used to, he was a Leo, of course. This is really funny. So he picked up on it, and he had Scorpio rising. Scorpio stages the release of Leo, but, for a student of singing, a student of music, I was a bit philosophical had this philosophical stream always running, no matter what as the personality I was doing, trying to express myself musically, I suppose. And I would always be questioning, who am I? Who am I? So he would lean out his door when he saw me coming and kind of hold on and would say, who am I? Who am I? What's the meaning of it all? He would make fun of the philosophical side of it. But I remember well that, he was not entirely happy. He could play the piano well, he could sing, he was a brilliant actor and interpreter, really Ray 4 type. But underneath it all, he had a deep respect for humanitarians. And he called, well, those are the real people, he used to say. So he probably went through a stage of realization about the contrast of what he was doing, which, well, it entertained many people, and what he really deeply respected. When I went back to the University of Michigan later, he was a very, very old man. I tried to see him, but he was afflicted by Alzheimer's and apparently wasn't really at home anymore. And his very, very elderly wife said, I just don't think it's profitable for you to try to see him. As you try to get perspective on your past. He was really a man living in this fifth petal, just brilliant in that way, I thought. So much for who am I. Okay, moving right along, what is the group or Deva group or groups most associated with this petal? Well, I would say the Agnishvatas are coming in. We've had the Agni-Suryans, we've had the Agni-Chaitans, emotional and mental respectively. We've had, I think, the mental elementals and the question about the Agnishvatas, whether they are also found on the lower mental plane, but certainly we're trying to contact an influence which is emanating from these higher beings of fire and air. Vata, which is air, Agni, which is fire, the solar angelic beings. In the later part of Petal 5, or the experiences associated with that later part of Petal 5, solar angels are touched and can touch as they begin to brood upon their shadow man as the downward-gazing soul. So this can be quite an important area of research here. And some research has been done looking into the Agnisvata in their many grades, some related to the Egoic head, heart and throat, and the one from the throat. The type from the throat seems to have power on the fourth subplane of the mental plane. Some have power over the egoic lotus petals per se. Others seem to have a higher type of power relating to the central part of the lotus, as when Buddhi descends along the monastic line and creates those four inner petals. So the Agnisvatas are not yet the sole sun in the microcosmic sky. The disciple, applicants see to it that the solar angels dim the light. The solar angel dims the light of the lunar angels, remaining the sole luminary in the microcosmic sky. Not yet is this the case. This would be the case at the true initiation, the third initiation. It's amazing. A certain sense of proportion begins to build as you see more and more of the picture and you study this vast ageless wisdom. The different parts of it, which had seemed separate, all begin to come together. The astrological cross most associated with this petal, well, it is the mutable cross and progress towards the fixed cross, which really begins in a somewhat indefinite period around the time of the first initiation, but maybe when a person is a real applicant to the first initiation. We're still in phase 1 of this petal, and in a way, we really will be until we're working in petal 7 and the fifth petal is unfolding. The integrated personality, integrated in its own right, is on the immutable cross. So the integrated personality, integrated in its own right, and not much merging with the higher of the pairs of opposites, is on the mutable cross. But when we begin to learn I am that, we're already making the transfer onto the fixed cross. In stage 2, we might say, stage 2 of the experiences of this petal, it's still mutable, but there's an intimation of the meaning of the fixed cross, offering, some kind of relief from the despair of the sickness of lower ego. And the fixed cross is really beginning when we're working in the seventh petal, strenuously and abnormally, helping to unfold it. And then the rod of initiation is applied. That's the first initiation. That's the fixed cross. And the fifth petal is then completely unfolded. I mean, right now, we're reading the menu instead of going to the restaurant. And I suppose reading the menu is a great anticipation of what one will experience in the restaurant, but one has to go to the restaurant. Sort of, excuse this Cancerian analogy, but it's meaningful to me. It's like reading the map of a country that you haven't visited yet, but you're going there, and so it helps, it will help you to know where things are, unless you're the total Aries pioneer and want to go into completely uncharted territory, unmapped territory. So there is a phase 2 here, and the fixed cross can be sensed on ahead. The fixed cross really comes in at the seventh petal, or the first initiation, and the unfoldment of the Leo petal. But Leo is a big sign for the first initiation, and as we've said, in Leo and under Leo you take that initiation. So the Leo petal must necessarily be opening with all that work being done. It's almost like, like I said, the shoemaker and the elves. You lay out the parts of the shoes. Let's say shoe maker and the elves. Well, you work hard to craft the parts of the shoe, and you lay them out on the bench and go to sleep. And when you awaken, something has put them together, whether it's the second SCL. I think SCL would be a good one. Oh, that's super cosmic logos. We don't want that. Second logos. No, there's so many things there. Second logos, the solar angel, or maybe the rod of power, maybe. But something puts them together when you're attending to other things, and then they're ready for you. So we're always getting help, We are always getting help in this egoic lotus. For people who do not yet have the solar angel as part of their psyche, the second logos will do the job of petal unfoldment, and besides, and also they are not so advanced as to need the downward gazing soul, who would only come in at the fifth petal. But the people, I can only think of the four categories kind of given by Blavatsky, the aboriginals, the Bushmen, the Vedas of Ceylon, the Hairy Ainus of Japan. And maybe there are others, but they don't have the spark in that way. But they do have the second logos, who will see to the unfoldment of the petals, and they are working on ahead, and everybody has at least one petal unfolded, no matter what relatively savage state they may be in. What can we say here about this? This is maybe the mutable sub-fixed, because Leo is a fixed sign, and we're still on the mutable cross. So is Scorpio, a fixed sign. What is the stage of the path most associated with the opening of this petal? Well, we've been on the path of evolution for a while, and it does continue, of course. But something else is coming in now. The path of ambition now takes over in the first part of the experiences related to the fifth petal. People become noticeable, and they want to be noted, distinguished, distinct persons, one of a kind, So this is the dominant personality stage, becoming a noticeable, one of a kind. The path of ambition, though, in the fifth petal, will show its insufficiency. Ambition just will not satisfy, because we are not that. We are the spirit. We are the consciousness. We are not any form, which always limits the expression of spirit and consciousness through it. So, in a way, nothing succeeds like failure, and nothing fails like success, especially if we remain attached to the success. Especially if we remain attached to the success. So we are learning then in Petal 5 to get off the center of our own magnificent stage, and the petal is begun in a centralized manner, and it's left in a state of decentralizing. I've mentioned Madonna before, who's quite a magnificent Leo type, and yet she has this interest in Kabbalah. it kind of, I don't know if she has Virgo in her chart as well as the Aries. I suppose, there's a quick way to find that out, and let's just see. Let's try here. The Madonna astrology. Okay, birth. She's born in Leo, very much in Leo. She's interested in astrology too. See, so this is a really good example of somebody who is moving. Let's see, what do we have here? Place. Do we have the chart down here? Maybe not. We don't seem to have the chart, but we will look for that very shortly. I was talking a little bit about Madonna, and I was wondering whether there was some Virgo in her chart. We were talking about the fifth petal and the sixth petal. So certainly she's had that glorious experience in the fifth petal in relation to Leo. But look at the astonishing, well, she has three major planets in Leo, the Sun, Uranus, and Venus, and they're all about, separated from each other by roughly 10 degrees apiece. But then four factors in Virgo. The rising esoteric moon as the ruler of the Virgo ascendant, and Pluto and Mercury together conjunct in Virgo. So, she's into the occult ideas, Kabbalah, astrology, things of that nature. And from all of this, this magnificent career, I think she also is, in a way, working upon herself and realizing the necessity of correcting. So it seems that it's not just the glorious personality that we are looking at, but somebody who is also taking those first steps on the path of aspiration. And who knows, before long, as time goes on, more and more into not just the aspect of the material girl that Virgo can give, but this birth of the soul consciousness coming out, I think, very strongly. The two rulers of Virgo straddling the ascendant. The Orthodox ruler, Mercury, right here 2 degrees away, and the esoteric ruler, the moon, veiling, I suppose, Neptune and Vulcan, Obviously, the powerful ambition is there. This very strong Mars all by itself, square to the sun. It's a tremendous drive. But it's the Sphinx. It's the head of the woman and the body of the lion, and the more important factor is this emergence into some, I would say, work into the sixth petal. This is what looks like could happen, and certainly in the later part of the fifth. Right. Well, that was interesting, I think, to maybe find, some people who are celebrities or are known for one thing and another, and people will only really be once they begin to enter the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth petal. Those are the places where you will begin to notice people, and I think not so much in the lunar petals where the group is there, but the individual is somewhat submerged in the group. So this was just a little bit of Madonna's horoscope, And it's so interesting that, of course, she's aware in astrology. She calls herself, the Virgin Mother, Madonna in a way, and look at all of that Virgo. It's a very interesting individual, not just for the career, but for what's behind it. Anyway, at a certain point in this fifth petal, we do learn to get off our own stage and take up less room within our contents of consciousness, within our field of consciousness. The lower ego is meant to take up less and less room within that perspective. And, well, we enter that petal in a state of very strong centralizing power, and we leave it in the process of the difficult process of decentralizing, moving from one phase of Leo to another. So at first we advance the I am through ambition, but then, the I am that consciousness begins to take over, and it is possible to step upon the path of aspiration. It's clear with someone like Madonna that the aspiration is very powerful. I mean, I think probably the lower ego still looms quite large, but it's obviously a chart set up for transition. So in the early, when we looked at Petal 3, we had the identification of the person with the role. I am such and such a role. But now increasingly identification with themselves and with the higher part of themselves. So in the second part of the petal, then, there can be intimation of the path of aspiration, which is accentuated in Petal 6. Petal 6 we could even call probationary discipleship. And then in the latter part, we really are stepping on that path of aspiration. In the latter part of the experiences connected with this petal, we are stepping on the path of aspiration. We begin to develop the fiery heart. Leo is known for its fiery heart, and that really continues as we go. The fiery heart of Leo is even greater at the 3rd degree, and even greater at the 4th degree. So we do see ourselves, we do discover ourselves here. We discover ourselves in this petal, and we see what is necessary for correction. And yes, path of aspiration begins, and some of the people in Petal 5, I think we can begin to call them advanced man. And that kind of precedes the stage of aspirant, right? So advanced man precedes the stage of aspirant. And we have to choose between our apparent humanity, the personality identity, and the soul identity. Two kinds of identities are presented. And I would say two kinds of identities are vividly presented. And a choice is ours, and much of Libra will be found at Petal 5 for exactly the type of choice which helps to reverse the wheel for the first time. Are there any stages of discipleship? Well, not really yet. It's still too early. The path of aspiration leads to the stage of probationary, probationary discipleship. And when Petal 5 is unfolding near the end of its unfolding, we are on the stage of PRB, PRBD, probationary disciple, and I want to give another abbreviation here, PRBDSS, and I'm going to call that probationary. Let's see if I can see it correctly. No, I'm not seeing it very well. It's very little letters. Probationary discipleship. That's what we have. Probationary discipleship. Okay. So when we are unfolding near the end, but not quite at the first initiation, we're on the path of PRB, DSS, probationary discipleship. So we're getting there now. We're coming closer to the path. The tarot card, the lion, strength, it's called. Strength is certainly developed very much in this petal. I've sometimes seen when there's a combination of Leo and Scorpio, the individual is very strong. I saw that with, I've seen this. Sometimes there's Scorpio may be rising and Mars may be in Leo. This combination gives great strength, and it is a strength which is much needed for the rigors of discipleship. Is there any initiatory stage here? Well, if there is not of discipleship, no, but it's pre-initiatory. And, the opening of the first tier gives us the lesser stage of initiation, but let us remember the first three petals are opened in a new way, and we have moved beyond that. So when the first tier opens, we may, what's called, join the union, be part of some group for our own selfish effort, not necessarily bad, just characteristic of the stage. When the second tier opens, we actually try to do something really evolutionarily helpful for others. But of course, evolutionarily helpful, yeah. The great monastic initiations do come, and let's just say, stage of initiation, we could say, first initiation, when petal 5 is completely open, fully unfolded. I have a series of really valuable quotations necessary to understand, and vital egoic references, I call them, and here on page 696, we're talking about the flashing forth of the star of initiation for the first time, and it infers the full unfoldment of 5 of the egoic petals, leaving 4 to be open before the final initiation, relating to the lotus. I would want to say, relating, rotating, okay, RLTG, okay, relating to the lotus, to the 9 petals of the lotus, and not to the inward part of the lotus. But anyway, this is such a definite statement about when this star flashes forth for the first time. It represents the full development of the 5th principle, the completed cycle of the ego upon 5 rays under the Mahachohan, and it's then, of course, that there can be the transposition of the egoic lotus to the second subplane, and one can begin to have a first or second ray soul, or even, for that matter, that's the period in which one can begin to have a first or second ray personality. So we have transcended, in a way, the kind of development under the Mahachohan, and that's why the star, which is 5-pointed, flashes forth. Okay. Where was I here? Was this petal 4? That's petal 4. I want petal 5. Okay. That's a little better. So, yes, the path of initiation, let's just say the birth of the Christ in the heart, the first initiation. But it's not what the man does himself only. Birth of the Christ in the heart. The man offers strenuous and abnormal efforts, and the rod of initiation does the rest, but I do not believe it opens the 7th petal entirely, just partially, where the 5th petal is open entirely, and I think it's my impression that the 6th petal is opening. The color of the 5 human stages most associated with this petal, well, we're moving from green to orange. We were still in the phase of green, and incipient orange when we were in petal number 4. Sometimes people may recapture the red, not so savage but very self-assertive. But the red can be ray 1 and or ray 6, and orange can also be 1 and 5. In this petal, we can really become a dictator. There's a lot of ray 1 in this petal, in petal 5, and especially if the individual, let's say, is a first ray soul and is fulfilling the first part of this petal. So making, forcing, compelling other peoples to obey my will, which is red, and blood will flow, I think we have a lot of people on the world stage today that have reached this 5th petal stage. They're very self-centralized. They have not crashed. They have not seen the futility of these lives of being a dominant personality. We see it everywhere, and I think, they have a lot of this early 5th petal work going on. I don't know how much unfoldment per se, but certainly they have worked in this 5th petal to the point that it is a real powerhouse for them. In a way, they're still playing on the field of green and playing very well, but they are the leader, you might say. If I am not spiritual, I'm still on the playground of the Lord, but I am leading the games at first, selfishly at first. So, and they are spectacular leaders. The dictator, the leader, stands out. And they can respond. They have responded to this statement. They have responded to this statement. Seize the orange ball of thy ambition. And, it has much of the, orange is a color that makes people distinctive. And as I say, Leo is orange and both first ray and 5th ray. So they can think and they have power. And also, we're told of the star with 5 bright points. It also fits here with the orange ball of ambition. So this is the integrated personality. There may be, let's just say, there may be some awareness of the higher pair of the pairs of opposites, but the main thing is selfish and powerful self-centralization. Much will depend on the ray. There are various traps in every one of the petals, we might say, and certain people might fall victim more easily depending on their ray. A lot of people have a very tough time, let's say, going through the 2nd initiation, but people, DK has told us that when your soul ray is 3 or 5, you don't have so much time, so such a difficult time. So maybe, working in petal 8 to open, to go through the 2nd initiation, it's an easier process for those on the 3rd and the 5th ray. Maybe there are peculiar temptations for the first ray soul working through the first part of the 5th petal. And maybe there are great opportunities for love and aspiration for the 2nd ray type working in that petal as well. Probably the destruction in a way comes harder for the first ray type. The garden stands revealed, and then low lies the garden, So in every petal, certain rays have an advantage and a disadvantage, and, well, when we can somewhat assess where an individual is, I think we can help determine whether he's going to have an easier time or more difficult time at the particular task on which he is working. Interesting that orange, being the complement of blue, you might say veils a blue, which suggests soul contact in the later phases, also is suggesting the higher mind, on which plane what we call the soul is focused. Well, is there an alter stage of the petal? in the altar stage of the petal? Well, it's the perhaps the stage in which one realizes one has to lay his life upon the altar. And this is done very deliberately and with more thought than can be found in Petal 3, obviously. There we are laying our body upon the altar of desire. Well, maybe it's more than the body here. This is the whole personality and not just the body, as in Petal 3. Orange has a lot to do with pride. I'm recalling Leadbeater talking about some of those who individualized under the impulse of pride. I don't know if I could ever understand that completely, but it somehow separated them from the others, and they were really closely characterized by orange. Well, we've been through the early Aryan stage. We've been through the early middle, or middle early Aryan stage, and now we're in sort of the middle Aryan phase here with this petal. Middle Aryan, fifth petal, fifth sign. So preceding that, we had early Aryan and early, let's see, middle early, or how would it best be said? Early middle? Maybe early middle. Early middle Aryan for petal 4, perhaps. And now we're solidly in the Aryan stage and becoming advanced man. Early Aryan, early middle, okay, yeah, I guess I wrote it down and I'm trying to figure it out while I've written it down, you know, that's typical. And middle Aryan, Aryans can become personalities. Atlanteans cannot yet become real personalities. Or let's just say the average Atlanteans, right? Atlanteans of Petal 2 cannot really become personalities, but in those days, of course, there were dynamic personalities and initiates who were the leaders, but you couldn't really, they were like Aryans in the Atlantean phase. Well, let's just say there's just not enough mind in some of the average Atlanteans to really become the personality, because we remember that the personality integrates on the fourth subplane where the mental unit is found. So I think we consider people who have strong desires and maybe we consider them to be personalities, but there has to be something unified and distinctive about them if we are really going to call them personalities. So all of this in the middle Aryan phase is offering the opportunity for group conscious experience, and with the corrections of Petal 6, that comes closer. Due to the corrections of Petal 6, we come even closer to that understanding of group consciousness. Yes, and moving when advanced man, when for advanced man we move from the, what does it say? The egoic lotus is moved, it transfers from the third subplane to the second subplane of the higher mental plane. Then we really have group consciousness becoming important. We really have group consciousness becoming important. And we have what's called, as you know, a city called response to group vibration on the higher, on the middle subplane of the higher mental plane. So right in the middle of the Aryan phase, we have, well, up to the middle maybe, right in the middle of it, mentally ambitious individually. This Aryan group is all about individuality at first. And then come the relinquishments, which Scorpio helps to, and the word is stage. Scorpio stages the release of Leo. I think it does it here, but it also does it when the causal body is about to be destroyed. So even when you turn towards the soul, there is an Aryan accomplishment. In other words, a mentalized soul consciousness. That's what we mean by Aryan. An Aryan accomplishment in the Aryan race, which is the fifth kingdom of nature, can be approached. That is the numerical correspondence, and it just has absolutely nothing to do with being a Teuton, being a blonde warrior and all that kind of figment of the glamorized German imagination of the Second World War. It's not about that at all. Aryan race, being a member of the Aryan race, is about mentality. So no matter what your racial form may be, you can be still in one of the Atlantean racial forms as the Orientals are, and you can be of Aryan mentality, absolutely. And you can be of Atlantean mentality and have the form usually associated with the Aryan race, one of the fifth root race forms. So it's about mentality, and then the creative expression of mentality in human group 6, and the merging of the lower triad and the higher mind. That will all come about too, and is still part of the Aryan phase in well, the higher mind, there's 3 types of mind here. We can call it this way. We can call it lower mind, higher mind, no, that's human monad. So HGM, maybe HCHM. Well, let's try that. Higher mind, HCM, and we'll call it higher mind. Okay, try that. And abstract mind. They are all different things. Higher mind is more the son of mind, and it gives a more unifying perspective on life, but abstract mind is really starting to see things in the broader planetary sense and from the impersonal perspective. When we are moving into the 6th subrace of the 5th root race, we get a focus on the abstract mind. That's interesting because we might think, well, we're moving into the 6th subrace now, so we're going to be intuitive. Well, it's the transition into intuition. So we are then, in a sense, transitioning out of the Aryan race and moving towards the 6th subrace. The 6th root race will be intuitive. And some are now, but so much masquerades as intuition, which is not at all. If you really want to know what intuition is all about, then read the opening pages of Glamour, A World Problem. Well, do we have a name for the egoic lotuses at this stage? They are basically radiant lotuses, but, well, here's some other names which may be evocative of some thought. Lotuses of centralization, maybe different phases of the 5th petal process. Lotus of self-centralization, those are early phases. Lotus of individual expression. Lotus of radiation, of course, either as a personality or beginning as a soul. The Radiant Lions from Australia. I'm not sure what that group is, but it sounds quite related to a certain phase of the 5th petal. So could the phrase radiant lotuses be initially applied here as those whose light is beginning to shine in a dark place when they become aspirants? Could it be? Maybe radiant lotus can be conceived as beginning here. I think geniuses are bright lights, and they do shine in a dark place, and they exist when there are 2 petals open. So can the radiant lotus span the development of the 5th and 7th petals? Or must we say that a radiant lotus only begins at the 1st degree? Well, when the 1st degree occurs, the 5th petal is completely unfolded. It's a UNF. Aha, I got it. UNFD. That's going to be an important one. UNFD. Unfolded. Unfolded. Okay. So when the first degree occurs, the fifth petal is completely unfolded. So that's going to be a radiant lotus, and I suppose the radiance is increasing as unfoldment moves toward completion. So radiance is increasing as unfoldment moves towards completion. But from the fifth petal onwards, it is all the increase of radiance. So, you know, even though you have a lotus with perfume, the radiance is going to be increasing. So when the master looks at the egoic lotus, it's not just what's open, it's how brightly the lotus is shining. It must be a fantastic display and something that we're going to see more and more of as we go. The brilliant genius is often called, right? So the fifth petal in genius shining forth with brilliance in a dark place, that's radiance of a kind. Their light is not under a bushel. At first there may be a lot of personal light, not necessarily soul light, but when there is a radiant personality, the soul has achieved something, you know. So they have emerged from the lunar veil, which is the same as about emerging from mass consciousness. And what about the cowardly lion? Well, they do exist, and a certain amount of shyness can exist here. But that's usually a fear of judgment. And when later that fear drops, then the lion will really emerge. So there can be extreme self-consciousness here, either outward going or maybe hiding itself, too sensitive to be seen and not wanting to suffer judgment in the eyes of others. It's a Venus petal, and Venus is the brightest of the planets, so most brilliant planet as far as we are concerned in terms of its proximity to the Earth, not in terms of absolute brightness maybe. But then again, the planets aren't really generating their own light yet. Only when they reach star status do they generate their own light. And think about it. Fifth petal, you become a star, you generate your own light, radiance, right? It really sort of fits together, right? Fifth petal, let's see here. You become a star and you generate your own light, and it grows increasingly strong. So you really do have a blazing demonstration of radiance by the time the causal body is to be destroyed. Venus and Leo drawn to the arts and to the sciences. It's kind of a fifth ray. One of my friends was talking about the image, self-image issues. I think they exist too. It is kind of the looking glass in which you look at yourself, but those are more the personal negative reflections. Venus can also be the inverted pentagram as well as the upright pentagram, so there is the chance for evil to express here. There is the chance for evil to express. You know, when DK talked about Leo as the most material sign, or if not most material, highly material sign, and related cosmic evil to Leo. Rome, France, Hitler's horoscope, maybe I'm trying to remember whether Berlin had a strong Leo to it. Anyway, there were times when cosmic evil really visited the earth, and the ahamkara can be so strong that it blots out other values, and the individual becomes a mad egotist. Sense of proportion is gone, and verging towards megalomania. We see this, with Napoleon a bit, with his sun in Leo. We see this with a number of people with strong Leo. They are the natural dominant leaders. Hitler's is a little more subtle. I guess it's in his soul horoscope, but Saturn is elevated in Leo, talking about his rise and his fall. So maybe, in fact, the radiant lotuses do begin here. That's what we have been hypothesizing all along. Now, remember, page 1081, we're talking about the stage of unfoldment most associated with this petal. Sons of the sun. Yes, sons of the sun, or is it sons of the sun? Maybe it's that. And this really means the initiate of the third degree. But we can begin to see that the process begins here in the fifth petal. Sons of the sun, well, we could also say sons of the Savior. I think if we looked here on page 1081, 1081, we don't see sons of the sun here, but if we go down to 1082, I think somewhere we do, don't we? Sons of the sun, here it is. And that has to do, I think, with a special origin of the monad in question, originating from within the solar logos during this solar system, not having maybe gone out for development before this solar system. But I kind of like also this idea of sons of the S-O-N, meaning that one is related to the radiant, loving Savior, the Son of God, the second aspect. I think the term points of fiery excellence, a name given off to magnetic, highly developed types, I think we can find this in the fifth petal. This type of expression in the fifth petal. Oh, fifth. Whoop. Yeah, there we go. So interesting that on the fiery excellence, on the fixed cross, the Leo experience is called fiery pain. Blinding light for Taurus, fiery pain for Leo, bitter woe for Scorpio, and liberation for Aquarius. So this is, advancement has occurred. Here's something, a quote from DK, which probably here is relevant. It will be noted in this connection how accurate was the earlier statement that the artist is found upon all the rays, and that the so-called ray of harmony or beauty is not the only ray upon which the creative worker is found. And yet the urge to the creative life is the fourth method of inducing soul control. So that word only is important. It does signify that the creative worker is often found on this ray. The creative worker is often found upon this ray. The mental body of every human being at some time or another is found upon the fourth ray, and usually when the man is nearing the probationary path. There are struggles there, and they have to be resolved by the fourth ray. This means that the mental vehicle is governed by an elemental of fourth ray nature or quality, and that therefore creative artistic activity is the line of least resistance. So he is hinting that the fourth ray is important for art, but not exclusively so. So fourth ray is important for creative arts, but not exclusively so. When we have a man with an artistic tendency, or we have a genius along some line, we then have a man with an artistic tendency, or we have a genius along some line of creative work, and that does imply two petals open. So when at the same time the soul or personality is also upon the fourth ray, then we have a Leonardo da Vinci, or a Shakespeare. I've often felt that the mental ray of da Vinci was more likely to be a 5, perhaps with a 4th ray soul and maybe a 4th ray personality. And Shakespeare, whatever Shakespeare really was, 4th ray soul, 4th ray mind, I suppose, although it's rare to have the mind and the soul on the same ray, and whatever for the personality. What is the group of souls most associated with this petal? Well, I think group 6, the achievers and the aspirants, those who are really making some success out of their life. Group 7 tells us something about the beginning of the probationary discipleship, and that's, I think, within the 6th petal. So group 6, human group 6, is really in 2 phases. One is the creative thinkers. Maybe it's even in 3 phases, simply the thinkers, you might say. Whether they have enough sort of intuition to bring everything together in terms of creativity, it might be another phase. And I might say maybe 3 even. Maybe 3 phases. Anyway, first, the thinkers. In other words, personalities who are thinkers. This is not the same kind of applied thinking to the world of the senses, which we find in petal 3. So then the creative thinkers, and then creative plus altruistic, the world aspirants. We're told that they are those who think in our minds. So one can think tending towards group 6, that is, those of petal 3s can think, and they are minds in a sense, but they are not yet personalities, and that's the interesting thing. They are not yet personalities. One can think and be creative. Group 6, there are those in petal 4 who can think and are getting their integration together in order to be creative, but they are not in the front rank of the noticeable or noticeably creative, or the, maybe we can call them the noticeable creatives, the cultural creatives. Whoops. Why can't, it's not going to allow me to do that. Okay. I wonder if I can get out of there and leave the word. Yes. Creatives. Those in petal 5 can think and be creative and are noticed. Okay, so how shall it be dealt with? If we turn to Esoteric Psychology 2 and we look at page 206, we'd be a little bit far, but here we are in 205. Is that it? Aha. Oh, I see what the problem is. We're still in a telepathy and so forth. Okay, now we're going to have it. Esoteric Psychology 2, 205, let us say. So intelligent human beings, group 5, but the souls who think and who are minds. They are steadily increasing in number and gaining in power as our educational processes and our scientific discoveries bring results and expand human awareness. They constitute the cream of the human family. That's an important statement. And, here the cream of the human family enrolling in petal 5. And these are the people who are achieving success in some department of life. They are writers, artists, thinkers in various fields of human knowledge and aspiration, politicians, religious leaders, scientists, skilled workers and artisans, and all those who, though in the front rank, yet take ideas and propositions and work with them for the ultimate benefit of humanity. So that's another sort of stage entered in the later part of the sentence. They are the world aspirants and those who are beginning to get the ideal of service into their consciousness. So what there's been here is a kind of a progression from the thinkers who are minds and the creative thinkers and the distinguished thinkers into those who are really altruistic thinkers as well. And I think you're going to find a lot of people who, you know, are distinguished as thinkers among humanity. And, you know, they have risen to the front rank, risen to a place in the front rank. Yes, I believe they have. And, you know, and yet they are not really on the path per se. They are not really on the path per se. Maybe some of them are, you know, and I think about some outstanding examples like Bishop Tutu or the Dalai Lama. I think of some noted intellectuals. I think they are on the path according to their ray. I think about Bertrand Russell as a great philosopher and mathematician, becoming really a humanitarian later in his life and living a good long life too, 98 years. It's sometimes difficult to discern who these people are, because we have different degrees of familiarity with what progress looks like on different rays. You know, we may not be so familiar. You know, what's an Edison? An Edison did tremendous things for humanity. You know, obviously a brilliant thinker. He's on the fifth ray, though, and people who are used to thinking in terms of, you know, great scholars and religious leaders and saints and so forth, they may not recognize the kind of contribution made by an Edison. He was kind of a member of the Theosophical Society, but I think HPB said of him that what stands in his way is disbelief. Well, this is, of course, the precise problem of the skeptical fifth-ray type, but I guess he did join. So, you know, is Edison then beyond the fifth petal, or is he the genius in the fifth petal? He's made certainly a great contribution to humanity, so we'd have to know more about his interior life, the initiates on the different rays and how they progress. I think that would be such a worthwhile book to help us no longer be trapped in thinking in terms of just a few rays with which we may be familiar. Okay, I mean, you know, when we look at Francis Bacon, do we see the initiate in him? He rang the bell that, what is it, gathered the wits or drew the wits together. He sounded the bell, something like that. And they came together. He was working on the seventh ray, but also he was a high initiate. His monadic ray, which was the third necessarily, would have been influential, and probably a fifth ray mind on top of it. So, you know, what does progress look like on different ones of the rays? That great disciple, FDR, well, great disciple, you know, at least an initiate of the second degree, and maybe in some ways verging towards the third. It's hard to say. He didn't say that great initiate, that great disciple. With Roberto Assagioli, maybe not so many people know him, but, you know, I think he's called an initiated disciple, something like that, or initiate disciple. That seems to suggest the third degree. Ataturk was on the first ray, and was commended for his use of Shambhala force. He had a few minor personality difficulties, which those who are more judgmental in mind would call major, but not from the Tibetan's point of view. He didn't give the same credit to Franco and to Lenin and to Stalin as he gave to Ataturk, who used the first ray energy in a disinterested way. Was he then, I don't think, an initiate of the first degree, but obviously a noteworthy individual, maybe of the second degree. He had Sun in Pisces and Scorpio rising, as I recall. What does achievement look like on the different rays, you know? We have Einstein's achievement, probably on the third ray in some manner. Third ray monad, it seems, for sure. I'm not sure about what the soul ray might be. Maybe more the third ray, but it could be in the fifth subdivision of the third ray ashram. It was a blend of ray 3 and 5 with a healthy dose of ray 2, and obviously an initiate of some kind. Was he a third degree initiate along a line that we don't understand so well? Well, the kinds of ideas he received through his intuition. Could he have been, then, in a sense, an initiate of the third degree, or almost so, along the third ray, fifth ray line? Martin Luther King, an initiate. I've been to the mountain, sixth ray, probably. Initiate along the sixth ray line. So what are we really familiar with, you know? When we look at the great composers, some of them were of initiate rank. I think Bach was of initiate rank. I think of him as related to the fourth ray in his soul. Some people have said the second ray, but then there are transferences from the fourth ray to the second ray we don't know. But certainly as a Lord of Harmony, he's, you know, the secret of my harmony, I alone know it. So what does an initiate on the fourth ray really look like? Do they go through the same kinds of phases that we go through when we are studying mostly along the second and sixth and first ray lines? Anyway, that's just, you know, in a way outlining a book that should be written, and I think it would take great discrimination to look at the phases through which one passed. I think we can do this fairly easily with people who have rays similar to our own, but when we're looking at the great philosophers, let's say, well, I mean, you know, Plato was an initiate. Was Aristotle an initiate? Was Aristotle an initiate along the third ray line and Plato along the second ray line? You see, they had really different approaches. So much philosophy came out of Plato, and so much science came out of Aristotle's philosophy. It was working within the realm of Brahma, so it would seem. But were their monadic rays similar? Because Plato was clearly, I think, an example of the third and second rays. Anyway, as we begin to get a bigger picture, these things will fall into place. So anyway, in this petal, one can think, be creative, and later take one's skills and be altruistic with them and express them through goodwill. See, later use one's skills in altruism and goodwill. Do I call this later? Yeah, later group 6 it is, and later petal 5. Later group 6 and later petal 5 have a lot in common. So if we can be creative and altruistic and have a good thought process and are motivated for the welfare of our fellow human beings, we can be considered aspirants. That means we are not always successful in controlling ourselves and living a steady life whereby those qualities can be constantly expressed, but we are somewhat steady and becoming more steady as we put ourselves to the test on the probationary path. So DK talks of success, right? Writers, artists, thinkers in the front rank, and these are world aspirants. Now, this is the thing, of course, are they aspirants or world aspirants, or in this context, like we sometimes say, disciples and world disciples? Are world aspirants higher than aspirants? Are world aspirants higher than aspirants. Is it so? Or is just, or does he mean the aspirants of the world? And, disciples of the world are not necessarily world disciples. So every different words, they have their connotations. So we compare all of this to the two phases of the Leo petal, really three phases, the crash, I suppose, the dominant centralized personality. Maybe we're not in the stage of the wretched aspirant yet. We're going along. And then the decentralizing personality, dimly aware, yet increasingly aware of the higher self. And then comes, let's say then comes the wretched aspirant, well, maybe the stage of wretched aspirant, my daughter loves that. She loves to speak of our wretchedness, which is our conflicted state as we strive for our ideals and fail and fail again. Many lives of failure, we are told, are found in this petal as the soul-in-incarnation seeks to turn its attention to the love of the real. Well, what about human group 7? The petal 5 people have lives of turmoil and of failure. There is some mysticism in them. Neptune is coming in. So is the struggle in petal 5 reminding one of human group 7? Those souls whose sense of awareness on the physical plane is now of such an order that they can pass onto the probationary path. And that's different from aspirants, isn't it? There's a distinction. They are the mystics, conscious of duality, torn between the pairs of opposites. That's a very petal 5 kind of thing, those lives of turmoil and struggle, torn between the pairs of opposites, but who are as yet unable to rest. They're prodded, driven by the soul, until they are polarized in the soul. They are the sensitive, struggling people who long for release from failure and from existence in the world today. They have an otherworldly attitude. If only I could be somewhere else where it was more pure and perfect. There's a lot of the sixth ray in this. Their mind natures are alive and active, but as yet they cannot control them as they should, and the higher illumination, more like the third initiation, remains as yet a joyous hope and final possibility. The joyous hope again points to their sixth ray aspiration. And then, not much is said about group 8, the souls whose intelligence and love nature is becoming so awakened and integrated, right, that they can begin to tread the path of discipleship per se, not just the probationary path. They are the practical mystics, or the occultists of modern times, and then the initiates, and then the masters, of course. Right, so yes, the struggle in petal 5, many lives of turmoil as one struggles to turn the soul nature towards the love of the real, the internalized soul nature, I suppose. So, we can just keep these in our mind when we are assessing the different groups of human beings and, our friends and people we may encounter, to try to understand what phase they may be working through. Let me find a good red bracket, reddish anyway. It's not supposed to be pure red, but sometimes it does look that way. So these people in human group 7, struggling in petal 5, they wish to leave the lesser sun behind and orient towards the more real sun, the higher self, orienting towards the love of the real. So this can begin in petal 5 later on, or, in relation to the experiences related to the later unfoldments of petal 5, and be more methodically pursued in intelligent petal 6 under Virgo, intelligent and painstaking. Petal 6 under Virgo. Petal 5 then is linked to group 7 through the word sensitive, struggling people. And the star of sensitivity is Sirius, related to Leo, and Leo's keyword is sensitivity. So if we are torn between the pairs of opposites, is some of human group 7 coming in? And I would say it is. Neptune starts to enter as the esoteric ruler of Leo, giving sensitivity and longing for release from failure. That is so often the aspirant's motive, you know. The aspirant longs for release from this world, you know, the other worldly attitude. The disciple, however, becomes practical and is later the practical mystic. And that is definitely a stage, it's a phase, to be the practical mystic. It means that we're not only fleeing the world, we're using Uranus along with Neptune. Neptune is good at fleeing the world, and Uranus brings us right back down to Earth, and so does Saturn. So Petal 5 has a lot of consciousness of duality. In Petal 5, you know, I like to think of the three phases. Maybe it's here, you know, let's call it expression, fall, and aspiration. Or crash, you know, and pride goeth before a fall. So one is, well, let's say expression or integrated lower ego. Integrated lower ego, fall and aspiration. The lower ego falls here and becomes at least an orientation towards the higher ego. The higher ego received somewhat and beginning with expression. We could call this, you know, the fame petal in its very first part. The hall of fame, you know, of outstanding individuals. Okay, so what were we on here? This was pretty much a discussion. Was this the discussion of the monadic stage of unfoldment? Oh, here, the group of souls, the human groups with which we are most associated. So, really, it's group 6 and group 7, isn't it? That's who we're dealing with here. Some of group 7 is coming in and still applies, I think, to some of the work that's being done in Petal 6. So let's just say that group 5, human group 5, and human group 6 both apply to different phases of the Petal 5 process. What about the stage of adaptation? Well, stage of adaptation number 4, I've got another initial for it now. Stage of adaptation number 4 also applies with selfishness to the nth degree. You know, really magnificent self-centered person with the mirror on themselves, which fits with some Leo types. But there is also, I suppose, we move into the phase of doing no damage. I suppose that might be a bit more like Petal 4 and Cancer. And Leo can be involved in the nth degree of selfishness. What about stage of adaptation number 5? The keynotes are there: respecting the rights of others while holding on to the rights of the personality tenaciously. Really good person. The heart is emerging as powerful. I would say, well, after the fall, you know, maybe after the fall. I think you can always count on a fall in petal 5 in some life. Pride goeth before a fall. You know, one does not look where one is placing one's feet when one's nose is in the air. So you want to be able to express yourself also, as long as you can, and you give others the right to do that. But how does it go? Let's take a look here, and we'll go into Esoteric Psychology 1, and let's say 3:24. Oh, I have the wrong. I did that incorrectly. 3:24. And this is the average really good man struggling to adapt himself to his surroundings, and motivated love, which recognizes the rights of others and consciously strives to adapt itself to those recognized rights. What about stage of adaptation number 6? It's the aspirants of the world who are theoretically convinced of their group relation, of its paramount importance, and of the need of every personality to develop its powers to the fullest. That's so Leo, isn't it? In order to bring real value to the group and to serve adequately the group needs. So we develop those powers in petal 5 after the fall. In true esotericism, there is no such motive as killing the personality. It's more taming it, isn't it? Or of disciplining it to such an extent that it becomes a dead poor thing. The true motive is to train. The meek shall inherit the earth, the trained shall inherit the earth. The true motive is to train the threefold lower nature, the integrated personality, to the highest demonstration of its powers. So it's Virgo working upon Leo. It's petal 5, petal 6, taking in hand what has been achieved in petal 5. This demonstration of its powers latent or developing in order that these powers may be brought to the helping of group need, and the personality of the aspirant may be integrated into the group. The rays 2 helping very much there. Thereby the group life is enriched, the group potency is increased, and the group consciousness is enhanced. So whatever training we can bring about from the petal 6 perspective, we work upon the prowess we have developed in petal 5. So what's going on in the life of the true aspirant? His developing recognition of group responsibility can also be seen going on in groups, organizations, and nations, hence the many experiments, and hence the house cleaning. This is so Virgo. This is so Pluto. Discarding of the rubbish of the old and worn-out ideas, and subjecting themselves to a period of disciplining and training, which must precede all real group life. That's a very strong stage of adaptation, number 6, and petal number 6. And when this process is over, we shall have these groups approaching each other in a new and real spirit of cooperation, of religious fusion, ecumenism, right? And in an international attitude, which will be new indeed. Then they will have something of a surer and greater value to offer to the whole. So this is all about group house cleaning, group training. The first paragraph is about individual training, then about group training. Within all these groups which are struggling towards the newer realization and integration, and which express what we might call the 6th stage of adaptation, are those who are already at the 7th stage, within the world servers, are those who are the initiates. So there is the stage of adaptation, number 6 here as well. Stage of adaptation number 6, the aspirants of the world. And so we have both together, and STOA. So we're learning group relations. And in Leo, this is much needed. In Virgo, it can occur under the influence of Neptune, under the influence of the 2nd and 6th ray. So it's the need of every personality to develop the powers to the fullest. Yes, fullest capacity. That's Leo and petal 5, but to train them as well. And that is the stage of adaptation number 6, and petal 6 as well. So there is a real house cleaning going on. Scorpio and Leo engage in what may be come the killing of the personality, later emphasized in Virgo in Petal 6, but it should be training and house cleaning. That's what it should be, and not a disempowerment, because all powers are meant to be rightly used. How is it that the Leo begins to fall, in this Petal 5? Arrogant, taking to itself too much, more than it is properly its own, and it realizes, wait, what's going on here? Nobody likes me, and I'm losing things, and Scorpio is taking them away, Scorpio, the wipeout, and so group consciousness becomes more possible when these barriers that the Leo has erected are coming down, are destroyed. And Ray 1 types experience in the law of repulse, well, it's actually in the technique of integration, the light that shocks. So some humility arises from humiliation, we can say, during the fall, in the 5th petal. So imagine, Leo hates nothing worse than humiliation, and it's the thing that does it the very good. It does what's supposed to happen. So Petal 5 and humiliation as part of the fall. And this is falling away from lower ego and rising towards the higher of the pairs of opposites. So it's a very beneficial, it's, it's a reduction, a definite reduction through difficult circumstances of the ahamkara. Okay, well, what planets, what chakras here are most implicated? Well, the ajna, solar plexus, and heart. I'm suggesting they are the very chakras that were involved in the triangle that we find in meditation number 2 in Dhyana 2. So ajna is powerful here for the integrated personality, integrating and integrated personality. A personality has a strong sense of purpose and direction. It is creating its own path in life. And so there is that one-pointed focus to assist with the integration of the personality, and Sagittarius gives this. I do think that Sagittarius and the Ajna center do come to be related. It's not just Sagittarius and the solar plexus. There comes a time when the 6th ray, of which Sagittarius is the greatest contributor, is found at the Ajna center. So anyway, there's the providing of personality vision, which can be followed by the integrated personality. And another way, the sun is found at the Ajna center. Well, in a way, the sun is found at every chakra. Every chakra is like a miniature sun. But when the sun, which is the symbol of the integrated personality, is found at the Ajna center, then we really say, well, what is my destiny? What about the solar plexus center? Well, it continues to be quite powerful until the 8th petal, and even then might provide great aspiration. In the 8th petal, the solar plexus is put into place, and there's the rising towards the heart center, because there's such a Buddhic effect in the 8th petal. But it's still here as we try to lift the energies to the heart after the fall, after the middle point of this petal. There is a point of reversal, a point of relinquishment. Well, maybe the sickness comes first, I think what we call ego sickness comes before the reversal of the wheel. And I would say that, that ego sickness occurs somehow towards the middle of this petal process. The sun, though, represents the integrated personality, and then comes the fall. Interestingly enough, the fall leads to a decision, and the sun falls in Libra. So the lesser ahamkaric sun actually is subdued in Libra, which helps to make the decision, and instead Uranus, which is the archetypal self, becomes more powerful, and the scales tip towards the inner genuine self. What about Mars in this petal? Well, Mars in Leo is ego assertion, maybe heroism and other strong expressions that can be used positively, but it can be ego expression, assertion, at the solar plexus center. And Mars has been yearning, towards Leo, but it pretty much wants to establish a powerful Leo expression. Mars is not one to give up its place in favor of more subtle things. Well, what about the heart center? Indeed, Leo rules the heart, we know, and this is the love petal. So the transmutation of the astral nature can really begin here. We're going to have a type of Buddhic love coming in. Love comes into it, and it will not finish. Well, will it even finish at what the transmutation will finish sometime in the work of petal 8. By the time we have the expression of love in the astral body, we should have the second initiation. So as soul love comes in, the heart center is important here. It's the solar and angel petal, and we understand something of second aspect love. In petal 5, we do understand something of love and the second aspect of divinity. The soul is the heart of the monad. The soul is now the object of our attention after the fall. The solar angel comes in and becomes a downward gazing soul. And maybe, maybe this occurs after the personality gets itself into trouble through pride and excessive self-centering. What about the fifth creative hierarchy? Well, they are the hearts of fiery love, and they are now making their first more conscious contact, conscious impact upon their projection, the soul in incarnation, the man in the lower world. So if you become an aspirant, there has to be heart as you strive towards the soul. It's sort of a solar plexus and heart factor, and slowly the solar plexus rises to the heart. If Neptune is both the solar plexus and, in a sense, the heart center, it should be because, of its strong second ray quality. So Neptune would, its strength would involve both of these centers. And I think, this transference of the solar plexus to the heart can begin here. I think it culminates later, but it can begin here. The raising of aspiration to the heart can begin here. It is the central petal, just the way the periodical vehicle, the egoic lotus is the central periodical vehicle. Central petal and heart as the central organ, 3 above, 3 below, we might say. 3 chakras above, 3 chakras below. Centrality. Fifth petal central, heart central, and the entire egoic lotus central. A dominant personality can use the heart, the outer aspect of the heart, we're told, to hold a group together magnetically, but ideally we are speaking of something else. So this is the first really solar petal. The personality becomes a radiant solar factor, increasingly under the sway of the soul. We don't really yet have the blending of the soul ray and personality ray, not yet, because I think the personality ray is emerging quite strongly here. But at least the future director of the personality is somewhat known. So there's a lot of attraction, what did he say, radiant and magnetic types, when speaking of a certain type of monad that I think is working through the fifth phase. Ahamkara, yes, 2 stages. What is my identity here at the fifth petal? I am the personality, and I am that, the soul. The causal body is Ahamkara also, in a higher sense, and distorts the expression of the plan from the triad and the monad. And that's kind of, it's so high anyway, we're striving towards this causal body that it's hard for us to imagine that there can be a distortion. So there are people busy fulfilling their own soul rather than the plan. It always struck me, somehow that those who are busy expressing their own soul will not be called upon to do the work of the plan in relation to the reappearance of the Christ. I thought that's quite a discrimination, because expressing one's soul is such a high thing, but sometimes putting those soul tendencies on the back burner is needed when the plan calls for the sacrifice of one's interest to do something even more needed. So as you become an aspirant, even a little of the crown vibration will emerge. We saw in this in these seed groups that supposedly have aspirants involved in them. I guess everybody's an aspirant in a way until the 3rd degree. The crown was always present. And if you are an advanced man, some of the head centers must be active. 4 plus the alta, we're told, and then later 7 for the initiate of the 1st degree. Vulcanian initiation in that respect. So spiritual man begins at the 1st degree, whereas advanced man precedes the 1st degree. This is a way for us to think of these categories. Is there a chakric triangle most implicated in relation to this petal? Well, again, ajna, throat, and heart. We can say this is largely at first advanced man. Certainly while he's working in the 5th petal, he's advanced man, and not yet the 1st degree type. The completely unfolded petal is required for that. So even advanced man has an egoic lotus on the second subplane of the mental plane. Shifting. I'm remembering the reference that says when a man becomes an advanced man, whatever that may mean in that context, the egoic lotus shifts to the vibratory focus on the 2nd subplane. So heart is becoming very important in this petal, and especially in the later part of the petal, because it represents the higher of the pairs of opposites. The throat center is there for creativity, and it is a throat center directed by soul impulse. Interesting that Hercules strangles the lion. It's involved in the throat, but it's the lower creativity is strangled in favor of the higher creativity. So the throat center is involved here. It is throat centers of the personality, and we are really integrating the personality here. We're making it a powerful thing. And the heart is of the soul. It's almost as if, okay, the personality must be subdued. It must, and the cave of the heart suggests initiation. It's almost as if we begin work in this petal with the throat center and move then to the heart center. Okay. Leos with self-consciousness, a lot of talking about the self. The 1st degree relates not only to the heart but to the throat. The 4 lesser centers and the alta. But we are not fully there yet. We're still talking about work within this 5th petal. We are not quite at the 1st degree. And, when we're working within the 5th petal, there's a stage of doing that when we are not yet working within the 6th. And there is a stage of that. Let's see, here's a few stages. I'll put them in. stages. Working within the fifth petal, working within the fifth petal and the sixth petal, working within the, maybe it goes something like this, sixth petal and the seventh, with the fifth petal unfolding, working with strenuous and abnormal effort in the seventh petal, with the fifth petal unfolding completely and the sixth petal unfolding somewhat. Okay, UNFG. Aha, that's a good one. Oh, another good abbreviation. UNFG. Nice thing about abbreviations is once you have the spelling correct, it will always be correct. And it's so easy to mistype as you go along. Okay, so those are stages in relation to the fifth petal. We do not know exactly the point. Exactly the point at which the fifth petal will begin to unfold, but suspect that one must at least be working in petal 6 and not just preliminarily. And then it would continue its unfoldment until in petal 7 there would be enough unfoldment. In petal 7 there would be some unfoldment due to the strenuous and abnormal effort and due to the rod of initiation, and then completing the unfoldment of the fifth petal. So I'm not sure what's being said here. Third degree 7, second degree 6, first degree 5. Second degree, the sixth petal completely. Okay, so we're talking about, maybe we're talking about a complete unfoldment. Let's see. Let's see here. Third degree, well, I don't know. Second degree, the sixth petal completely unfolded. First degree, the fifth petal completely unfolded. Sixth petal, fifth petal, 3. Fourth petal, 2. Third petal, 1. I wonder, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm having a tough time remembering. Maybe you will see the pattern here. The third petal is certainly a beginning point of the mind. Fourth petal has the, are we talking about rays? Not really. The second degree does require the sixth petal. The third degree requires petals 7, 8, and 9, all unfolded. And the first degree, the fifth petal, yes. But the sixth petal and the fifth petal, 3, well, I'm just going to have to let that go. It looked, maybe I was just wondering how this would be. The third degree does not show the seventh petal completely unfolded. I'm pretty sure of that now. The second degree does show the sixth, and the first degree shows the fifth. This much is clear, I think we would say. This much is clear. As for the sixth petal, what are we talking about in terms of 4? The fifth petal, 3, it is the conclusion of Brahma. The fourth petal, the pairs of opposites. Third petal, sacrifices involved. It's a little more difficult for me to see this. It's been so long I should have, excuse me, filled in something greater. Maybe it will come here. The heart, throat, and ajna, in its more personal use, that is more, yes, as personality. Remember, the solar plexus center is still potent here. Of course, the head centers are coming into effect as Leo rules the top of the head, and as the solar angels contact man through the top of the head, among other avenues. It would seem that we are starting the stimulation of the head centers in the fifth petal. And that would make sense to me because the sun, and it is said often that Vulcan and the sun are one. And Leo is ruled by the sun, which means that in the Leo phase, Vulcan is significantly powerful. And so will is related to Leo, and 5 head centers are strong together at the first degree. See, all these things are happening simultaneously. We have, first of all, we don't know the anatomy, the inner anatomy. At least people who study the ageless wisdom tend to know that more, but so many don't. And then we don't know the physiology, the inner physiology of how these things work together. But we're talking about chakric unfoldments of the head center under Leo at the first degree as the fifth petal is completely unfolding. And interesting enough, we're working on petal 7 at that time, which corresponds to the 7 head centers that exist. So maybe, there's going to be some work on ahead. Certainly, as we're working in petal 8, the 6th of the head centers, whatever that may be related to the second ray, is being worked upon. In petal 9, the 7th of the head centers is being worked upon. And by the time we reach the third degree, all 7 of those head centers are stimulated, active, in addition to the 2 many-petaled lotuses, which continue to be active after that. That's the ajna center and the crown center. So they are kind of separated off. And I think we could kind of look at the planets here as well. One of them is going to be ruled by Uranus, the crown center, and the other by Neptune, the ajna center. And Saturn, esoteric Saturn, is going to be the other 7 head centers. So just look at chart number 6 in a treatise on cosmic fire, and you'll get the 2 above the 7, and we'll get the 2 many-petaled lotuses above the 7 head centers. Could the shift from the third subplane of the mental plane to the second begin at the opening of petal 5 and be consummated by the time we reach consummated by the time the rod of initiation is applied in petal 7? And I think that's more of a possibility. Are there other chakras here implicated, and are there reasons for the implication? Well, the solar plexus and the crown. So what have we had so far? We've had a triangle, solar plexus, heart, and ajna. And now we're looking at things a little bit individually. Solar plexus continues, well, even after the 8th petal, but it is subdued and changed from its predominantly Martian quality during the 8th petal process in which the second degree occurs. Solar plexus center continues until the 8th petal, and even then continues, but only as a servant. Mars becomes the servant of Venus. There's fervent expressivity of the solar plexus center, and Master Morya tells us always to strive fierily, and he's not just saying, well, you can, if you're initiate of the second degree, now you can stop striving fierily. It's DK said it's a technical method of transmutation. So aspiration shouldn't be looked at as something emotional at all, but as actually a method of transmutation. What about the crown chakra? Well, as I say, in a way, it's always got to be active whenever we're on the path of aspiration. It's always got to be active to a degree. Otherwise, you're just going to die. But coming in as a center of purpose and direction, I think we have to be on the path. So, but only slowly active. We have to remember how it's related to the sort of atmic plane. But that would come later in its relation sort of to the third degree, I would say. And then the heart and the head center more to the fourth degree, and also to the monad, I would say. And the jewel in the center of it all may be related to the logoic plane. Okay, so only the crown center is becoming active, but it's less activated than the 5 and then 7 head centers. It is reserved more to the time when you are crowned, when you become the true master. If I desire, let's say, to be on top in an individual way, that is the solar plexus center. And if we are not yet selfless, we really have that solar plexus center, which is the seat of personal ambition, let us say here. A seat of personal ambition. The solar plexus center is the organ of selfishness, and that's why it is somewhat defeated at the at the second initiation in the 8th petal, where the 6th petal is reflexively open. The heart is the organ of selflessness. Well, there's some possibilities here of the astral chakras, the heart certainly, because, you know, the astral plane is important here at the first initiation, as it is approaching, and as we are changing a desire into aspiration. So, since we are dealing with the petals for the astral plane, we would expect the astral chakras to be working. After all, petal tier number 2 is the petal, is the tier for the astral plane. And Neptune at this 5th petal suggests the presence of the astral chakras, because Neptune is related to Varuna, the ruler of the astral body. So Neptune, Varuna, and the astral chakras do fit together. The astral heart center, well, it can be personality self-love, but that's the negative side, and we understand that can occur. But also, for the good, soul love and group love. They are beginning here in the aspirant. And also we remember that motivated love in the really good people that recognize the rights of others even while striving tenaciously to hold on to their own. Can we equate sacrifice with group life? And what then is being sacrificed? Well, you know, immediately it seems to me the ahamkara is being reduced and ultimately sacrificed. Real group consciousness is about not asking for the separated self. And we might say that begins more at the petal 7 work, where the monad is coming into expression in relation to the soul, even though not detected by the brain, and later where the rod of initiation is applied by the bodhisattva. So the real group consciousness is coming in there, even though, because it's at the first degree, with the opening of petal 5 and work being done in petal 7, that the egoic lotus moves to the second subplane, where we do have what's called response to group vibration. The heart, group consciousness, and sacrifice. These go together. There's probably a lot that can be said about the astral chakras, but I think, you know, it's probably, rather than be speculative about this at this moment, it's probably to be better to be a little cautious before wandering too far afield. We have so much in relation to the chakras that we do somewhat understand before getting into the astral chakras. And yet, you know, the astral chakras are part of the same vortex which produces the etheric chakras, and same for the mental plane. Really, emanating from the monad is this vorticular sort of phohatic motion, and I'm presuming there are chakras on all the planes below the monad, and at a certain point even chakras on the monadic plane, maybe once the temple of Ezekiel is replaced, and chakras on the egoic plane. I look at this as a vorticular type of motion that digs right down through all the planes, whatever that really means in vibrational terms. And so we cannot actually separate one series of chakras from another. They're all part of the same descending vortex. I mean, we would look for the solar plexus etherically, solar plexus on the astral plane, solar plexus in the mental plane as all part of the same vortex. And I think that will simplify things a bit. Well, you know, friends, tomorrow is going to be my last day that I can work on this for a bit. The group is returned from Tibet, and my wife's homecoming tomorrow, lots to debrief and so forth. You may be listening to this years ahead. I don't know if you are listening to it. But let's just say I think it's best for me to say that this is the end of program 40. And it's the end of Egoic Lotus webinar commentary program 40, and we'll call it a petal synthesis of petal 5 part 1, and it'll be about 3 hours here, and we'll begin. I think this will take maybe another 3 hours, and that's probably all I can do for the time being. Beginning of Egoic Lotus webinar commentary program 41, a synthesis of petal 5 part 2. And I don't know how many hours, maybe 3, something of that nature, but this seems like a good place to begin because it's a complicated subject, and we are looking at the rays that will be connected. All of these correlations, you know, what can I call it? Correlation fever. It's not just for the sake of having correlations. It's for the sake of drawing all things together so they reflect a pattern which is created according to pure reason. The correlations, let's just say, reveal the pattern. The correlations reveal the pattern which is understood by pure, not personality, Ray, pure reason. So if the correlations are correct, they will accord with what pure reason reveals. If the correlations are correct, they will accord with what pure reason reveals. And if not, then not, and we have to re-correlate. But we're getting an ever finer web here of comprehended relationships, and then all kinds of things begin to appear. In other words, what we finally have, you know, we finally have the relation of everything, well, of everything to everything else, and reciprocally, as my old friend Annie Mueller used to say. So we have a completely perfected matrix of relationship. At first it seems a little tedious, drawing lines from here to there and to everywhere, but eventually it all stands forth. The beauty of the divine pattern does stand forth, and we realize that in one flash of the intuition we can comprehend the picture without all of this reasoning, which is, I'm doing a lot of that, I admit. So reasoning gives way to pure reason, and that is what that is the goal. It's all a very Mercurian. Mercurian, all right. It's all very Mercurian, and there are so many different phases of Mercury, but sometimes you have to use the lower phases of Mercury to reach the higher. The higher phases of Mercury have a lot to do with just seeing it, you know, just grasping all the interrelations simultaneously. Okay, friends, so this is a 3-hour program, and we will finish, I'll wake up early, I suppose, I hope, and finish this in the morning, and then we will have at least reached the pivotal petal, the really pivotal solar angelic petal. We will have reached that. The petals, in a way, get to be more fun as they become higher, because it's more what we as aspirants and disciples are dealing with, and it doesn't occur so long ago in the remote past that we really can't imagine what things were like in those days. Secret Doctrine helps us, and so does C.W. Leadbeater in some of the outpicturing of those ancient forms. But okay, enough. So we will be back with this before long, and meanwhile we forge ahead. See you soon.